welcome to Misfits on Vinyl. My name is Spencer Streichert. I'm an actor, comedian, and one of your hosts.
My name is Aaron Walsh. I am also one of your hosts.
Aaron's also an actor, and he's not the only thespian on the podcast today.
Ooh, we have a thespian.
We do. We have a very special guest this episode. We have comedian, actor, writer, and podcaster Forrest Shaw. Please welcome Forrest to the show, everyone. Forrest, are you frozen?
Call me an actor?
Wait, what?
Did you just call me an actor?
I called you a thespian.
Yeah, you're a thespian.
Oof. Okay. Sure.
I mean, I would say that you were an actor. You were on Legit.
Yes, I have done some acting, things that is acting, but I would not say thespian, that's for sure.
It's okay for us. I also don't identify as an actor, and Spencer calls me one every single podcast. So it's I feel your pain.
I really just want everybody to call themselves an actor so that it annoys actors more.
Nice.
Okay, so Forrest, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. For those of you that don't know, Forrest is a comedian, a writer. He's written on the Jim Jeffries Show. He's a producer on the Connor Moore Show. He's also a co-host on the podcast I Don't Know About That with Jim Jeffries and the Mermen podcast. Forrest, before you got into comedy, you were a marine biologist.
Yes. What were you going to say? What's up with that?
Yeah, if you want to talk about that, please feel free. If anybody's listening, we had a bunch of technical difficulties.
We had so many technical difficulties. Because just like Forrest, I also am a marine biologist, so I do not have technical computer knowledge.
The Marines of Calgary.
Yeah, so I was a marine biologist, for about I think it was like about 15 years.
Fucking A.
And I think it was in 2010 that I quit my day job, as they say. But prior to that, I was doing stand-up from around 2000. I started in like 2004, and then to 2010. That's what the overlap was. And I was like, "Fuck manatees. They're fine." What's the worst thing that's going to happen to them? Cut to this past year, the most of them have died.
Damn.
In the history of that.
So it's all your fault, is what you're saying.
That's what people have said. People write to me all the time. I can help them, So that's what I did for a living, and that was the thing. When I first started doing comedy, I tried to do a lot of science jokes, and when you first start doing comedy, you're not good at comedy. So if I have any advice to people that are starting to do comedy, the first year, just stick to dick jokes. If you're a woman, vagina. Dick and vagina jokes.
Nice.
Because don't try and do jokes about overpopulation and climate change your first year. No one cares. You're not good.
I mean, although that is kind of funny because now I think that the thing that most people do when they're starting is try and lecture an audience, but you were trying to give them like a university lecture.
Yeah, it's like a TED Talk. It's funny because I joke now that I closed, or I was like near the end of my last album, and I probably did when I was working with you, Spencer, and it's a climate change joke, but it's a climate change dick joke. So still stick with the dick jokes.
Nice.
Fuck me. God damn it.
Forrest, I don't know if you can see that. Spencer just dumped his beer all over himself.
I didn't dump my beer. My glass broke. My stupid fucking record mug shattered. And I just poured beer all over my goddamn pile.
What a hot start for the day.
Fuck me.
Forrest, I was going to ask you a little bit about
Podcast is going great.
Yeah, I know. First guest and everything has gone wrong. I wouldn't expect any different from us anyway. So it's not. This is not new. But Forrest, I was gonna ask, what was your first concert you went to when you were a child?
Yeah, it's one of two. I'm not sure. They were both in the Orange Bowl.
Nice.
The Orange Bowl in Miami, Florida. I grew up in Miami, Florida. And it doesn't even exist anymore, the Orange Bowl. They tore it down, and now it's the Miami Marlins baseball stadium. But it was a historic stadium, the Orange Bowl. And so it was either the U2 Joshua Tree tour, like the original tour back in the 80s,
Nice.
or it was the Monsters of Rock Van Halen tour. They're very close together, and I don't know if you have a researcher that can look that. So whichever one of those was first, but the U2 Joshua Tree tour, it was like, I think it was like Los Lobos and like Buckwheat Zydeco or something was opening for him. And I remember I was in high school, and my mom was like, okay, I'm going to let you go to this concert. It's on a school night. So, you're going to have to wake up early and go to school still, blah, 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 whatever. And I went and saw the show. And the next morning I woke up and I was just sick as shit. But I was really sick. But of course, my mom didn't believe me. And she was like, livid. I'm never letting you go to. I think she like dropped me off like, I think I was probably like a freshman in high school. So I was probably whatever age that is, like 15 or something. Yeah. And so she dropped me off, and my grandmother's like, you're staying here. I'm not leaving you home. And then she came back and I had chicken pox. I was really sick.
Oh, fuck.
Like, she was like really mad. So I gave a lot of people chicken pox at the U2 show.
Which honestly might be the best thing to happen at a U2 show.
Yeah. Hey, look, that's a great album. Yeah, Joshua Tree, prior to Joshua Tree, you will not badmouth you too.
I see. I grew up with Bono wearing the colored sunglasses era, and he always kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Say what you want about that, but if you listen to the Unforgettable Fire and even the Joshua Tree, those are
I do like Joshua Tree. That's fair.
Is that that's not the one with Sunday Bloody Sunday on it, right?
That's their first album. That's even that album too. Yeah, where they performed at Red Rocks. That's what pretty much like catapulted them into like stardom, was that Red Rocks concert.
Yeah.
Unforgettable Fire is basically a whole tribute to Martin Luther King. That entire album is basically the whole album, but it's killer songs. Yeah. Like, it's really good. Anyways, it's either that or the Monsters of Rock, which was headlined by Van Halen, but the opening act was Kingdom Come. I don't know if you're familiar with them. That's John Bonham's son, Jason Bonham. From the drummer of Led Zeppelin. It was his son's band called Kingdom Come, and they sort of sounded like Led Zeppelin. Whatever. They were the opening act. The second band was Metallica.
Holy shit!
It was Metallica. Yeah, it was Metallica right as they were releasing "Injustice for All" off after Master of Puppets, and I didn't really know Metallica. My friends that took me to this concert were like, "This band's killer." And they were so good. They were the second of 5 bands of the day of Monsters of Rock. And I remember them being so good. And I was like, I wouldn't want to follow them. And it was Dokken. I don't know if you know. Yeah. Dokken is like this 80s hair metal band. And they just came out there. They must have been coming out the whole tour like, what the fuck? We got to follow them. Like, they just came out like, hey guys, it's Dokken. And the whole crowd was just like, get the fuck out of it. Because
they're following Metallica, and their intro is fucking spraying their hair with hairspray.
No. That's funny.
Yeah. That was like, in comedy terms, it was like there's like a headliner. There's like a headliner that does cruise ships that's been doing it for 25 years. That's dead inside, and it's just like the up and coming comic that's just like, hey guys, we're Metallica, we're out here. We got a few songs we want to play for you. We're just trying to make a few bucks here. And they just came out and just ripped it so hard. And then I think it was Scorpions after Dokken, and then Van Halen with Sammy Hagar.
That's pretty wicked.
That would be fucking sick. Okay, so I have a question then that kind of follows up on this, and this is for both of you, but Van Halen or Van Hagar?
I mean, I like Van Halen better. I mean, 1984 is. I'm an old guy. I'm old. I'm 50 years old, man. I'm old. I'm sorry to ruin your podcast by having someone this old on your podcast, but
I don't think you're ruining it. I think I've done a pretty good job so far.
I think Spencer's kicked that off today. Crashing computer, crashing beer glass,
But Van Halen, 1984. That album to me was like when I was young was huge, and then even Van Halen 1 and 2. Those are the best. I think, even though seeing Van Halen live was good. By the way, seeing those 2 concerts, they were in the Orange Bowl, which is a football stadium, Mm-hmm. I just thought that's how concerts were. Like, I didn't know you could go see them in like a theater, or even like in a coffee shop. I didn't even know that was.
I mean, it sounds like you started
like see them in football stadium.
Sounds like you started on like a super high. Is that the best concert you've seen? Those 2, any of those 2, or is there one after you think of that would be you would say the best concert you've been to?
No, it's the last concert I've seen, it isn't the best, but it was killer. I saw the Doobie Brothers.
Oh,
Ooh.
fuck yeah.
That's sick.
Let's see, 2 months ago I saw them at the YouTube Theater, which is attached to the SoFi Stadium in LA. It's like I don't know how much it seats, but it's a theater attached to that brand new state of the art stadium. And it's their 50th anniversary tour with Michael McDonald.
Oh, fuck yeah.
That's cool.
It was killer. Like, it was so good. Like, it was, it's maybe not the best I've ever seen, but that was a great concert. Best concert I've ever seen, I don't know. I'd have to think about that, but it depends. Like, am I on drugs?
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, every external doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, what concert do you go to not on
Yeah,
drugs?
that's a good question.
I mean, I'm getting, like I said, I'm getting older, guys. I can't, but it's like, because sometimes
I don't think you'd see on drugs.
I would see
I'm
Celine
into
Dion on
EDM
drugs.
too, and I've seen some DJs really high that I'm like, that's amazing, but you're like so high that you're just like, there's different levels of high. There's like, I smoked a joint and watched the Doobie Brothers, and then there's like, I've eaten a bunch of pills and snorted a bunch of stuff, and I'm watching a guy spin 3 different songs in the one, like Adam Friedland. I don't know if you know who that is, but who's actually working, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing too. But I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fuck. I mean, it's funny though, because connection to a previous episode, Michael McDonald, the backing vocalist of Christopher Cross's debut album.
Sailing.
Yeah, one of the best albums of all time.
Yeah, he's got a crazy good voice. It stands out.
Incredible voice. Okay.
Yeah, and Ride Like the Wind, isn't he?
Yeah. Ride Like the Wind, Sailing.
Right
What was the other one? Well, there's a lot on that album. We talked about it on that episode that there's a lot of good songs on that album, but they all sound exactly the same. Okay, so one thing I wanted to bring up because it's kind of funny.
He can still sing. I don't know how old he is, but he's old.
Yeah, he's in his 70s.
And that Doobie Brothers concert, he still can hit all the notes, man. He can still like all the songs that I wanted him to sing, they sang, and he could still hit all the notes, and he doesn't even have like delicate fingers. He's got like these sausage fingers. They look like kind of just banging away on the keyboard, and he's like he's crushing it. The whole Doobie Brothers crowd, they're awesome.
It's wicked.
Well, it's so funny because like speaking of old people, like one of the best concerts I ever saw was Hall & Oates at the what is now the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, but used to be Maple Leaf Gardens. That was, honest to God, one of the best concerts I've ever seen, and they were able to hit all their notes still, which was fucking good. I also spent $10 to see that concert and got upgraded when I got there because nobody else was going to see Hall & Oates. And so then I was like third row from the front, and I was like, this is the best night of my life.
Yeah, look, Doobie Brothers that last one was up there. There's this artist Ben Howard that I'm really into. He's a guitarist, singer, songwriter. I saw him at the Greek Theater, and that was pretty next level. But I don't know if people know him. He was really good. I saw the Killers at Staples, which was I like the Killers, but I'm not that into them. I went because we had an in to go, and it was they're pretty good live. So, but I don't know. I went to a lot of different festivals, and I think I've seen some pretty killer acts within those festivals,
Yeah, I was gonna say there's something that I thought was really funny. So at Folk Fest this year, I was standing like right close to the stage. When Kevin Morby was on, there was a guy standing in front of me that had a Lollapalooza '92 shirt on, and so I took a picture of it and I posted it to Instagram and I said, "This man has lived, laughed, and loved with the best of them." And Forrest responded and was like, "Hey, watch your tongue. I was at that Lollapalooza." So what the fuck was that Lollapalooza like? Because that would have been the second one, right?
Yeah, that was the second one. I was at the one in Miami. I'm from Miami, Florida, so I was at the one in Miami. And that was, I think Pearl Jam was like the opener in that one. Like, I think they just released 10, I want to say. Or like it was maybe it was like big, but they were already booked as the first or second act, for the main stage. But maybe they were second act, but I remember we did not have tickets. And so we just like lingered around. It's at Bayfront Park in Miami. And so we were like lingering around figuring out how we're going to get in. Cause a lot of people were swimming in cause it's like right on the bay and you could like swim and like climb up the ski wall, get cut up by barnacles and shit and get in there. Again, we were on drugs, but I think like acid or something. But there was part of the fence literally it was the beginning of Pearl Jam set. And I want to say Even Flow was the first song. So it was like a video, almost like part of the section of the fence collapsed and all these people started rushing in and we just rushed in by the fence. So it was probably like 40 of us just ran in and they don't, it's such a mess in there that once we got by, they stopped everybody else. And I don't even think they chased us. I think they were just like, whatever, those people are in, and I don't think we would be able to get in and out or get anywhere. So we had to kind of just stay in there and like do our thing. And, but it was killer. Like, cause I remember it was like, wasn't Ministry there too?
Ministry was there. Soundgarden was there. Red Hot Chili Peppers and Ice Cube.
Yeah. It was killer because the setting there reminded me is killer too. Like I said, it's right on the bay. So it was like right on the water. This really killer setting. And so the sun's setting behind that. I remember the sun was setting during Ministry's set. And they, Ministry has like, 85 guitars and 25 bass players. And they have like skeletons like on like wheels flying across the stage and like weird light. It's just like, and it's like, and I'm sure we were on a lot of drugs. And it was just killer. That was good. We went to that one and we went to the one the next year. We bought tickets for that. We drove up to Orlando, which I think was like Primus and Tool and
nice.
Maybe Alice in Chains and stuff. We went to that. We actually bought tickets for that. But it was killer. And then, but the one in 92, I remember it was like, we partied hard. We stayed the whole day. And then I went home. And I think the next day, my mom woke me up like 4 hours after I was asleep for 3 hours. And she goes, hey, there's a hurricane coming. You have to prepare. And I was like, what the fuck? And it was Hurricane Andrew, which is a massive hurricane in the history of hurricanes. If you look it up, it destroyed South Florida. So I had to like wake up and board up the house and like, drive some shit to other relatives and stuff.
That fucking sucks, dude. That fucking sucks a lot.
What's the okay? Yeah. So this is a question. Then what's the worst thing you've had to do hungover?
Oh fuck! I remember when I was living in Toronto. We had took some Mextasy.
Yeah, we did Mextasy and MDMA.
And I was a broke student at the time, and I was doing like yard work for this guy for like $50 cash, and he wanted me to come rake his leaves. I did such a bad job, he paid me to go away. Yeah, he's like, you can go home. He's like, here's $50, go home.
Yeah, no, I did do a bad job raking leaves.
And I had to power wash his deck, and I was like fucking out of it. I was so miserable.
Shit. I mean, it's either you're raking them or you don't.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wasn't going fast enough because I was there for like 4 hours, and he was like, "I'll give you $50 if you leave," and I was like, "Okay." It's like, that's fine. So I went home. I was like, you know what? That wasn't bad. Thought I did okay.
Wow.
Fuck, I think for me it was when I was 14 and I woke up. I was still drunk, I think, and I was at a rodeo, and then I was the one that had to drive because everyone else was too hungover. So I was driving illegally and also under the influence.
That's a good thing to admit to the public.
You know what? Statute of limitations. That was a long time ago.
One time I sold vacuums too, pretty hungover. That was pretty shitty too. I used to be a sample guy at Costco when I was in my teenage years, and they had me selling Dysons one day, and I was incredibly hungover. That was a fun day too. I sold like 4 vacuums.
This is not something I had to do, but many, many, many times I took ecstasy. I would go out for Friday, Saturday night, do ecstasy, and then Sunday I would meet up with my friends. We had a Sunday basketball. That was like, I don't know, 15, 16 of us that, we'd rotate teams of 5. And we'd play outdoors in Florida. Just nice. To give you an idea. Hot as shit.
I imagine sweaty ball sacks.
Yeah, many times. Still like straight off ecstasy binge for 2 days. I would just play stuff. Like now I think about it and my heart wants to explode just sitting here thinking about it. Just the sweating and in my brain I was like, this is a good way to get the toxins out. But I remember just like wanting to die during that. I'm like, in my brain I'm like, this is good. Like this is some meathead philosophy where you get out there, you sweat it out, you get some H2H, what is it? There's a serotonin booster.
5
5-HTP.
Yeah.
HDB. You pops that 18 of those. You're good to go to work on Monday.
Fucking
Let's do
shoot
it.
some hoops.
What's
I was gonna ask you if you got dialed in, but it doesn't sound like you were. You said like you were bricking most of your shots.
It's not good. No. I'm waiting to drop that at any moment. It could be in this podcast. So,
okay, so yeah. Well, one last question, because Aaron wanted to know what your honest opinion of Calgary was.
Yeah, I was curious.
Opinion, like how? What do you mean?
Like, what did you when you were
things
here?
To do?
When you were here, let's compare it to Miami, of all places. Compared to Miami, what do you think of Calgary, Alberta?
Very similar.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of plastic surgery in Calgary.
Nice, true. Lots of lip fillers.
Well, you know, you got that burger place, whatever that place was.
Peter's Drive-In.
Nice.
Yeah, no.
The burgers suck there.
Yeah, they're fucking awful.
Yeah.
That just came up again on our podcast, like on the I don't know about that podcast. It came up again for some reason. I don't remember why.
It's like the sauciest, shittiest burgers you can get.
You know what? I was always, every time I've told someone I've gone to Calgary, because that wasn't the first time I've been to Calgary. I did the Laugh Shop. It's a Laugh Shop, right? The comedy. Yeah. I did that one time, and I've been to Calgary another time with Jim, and every time I tell people, they're like, "Oh, did you go to Banff?" And I go, "I've not been to Banff." So I'm like, I'm sure Banff is beautiful. Do you guys claim Banff as part of Calgary, or that's too far away?
That's the thing. People say when you go to Calgary, like, did you go somewhere outside of Calgary is the highlight, which is kind of the funny thing is like, did you go an hour away somewhere else to see the mountains?
But I will say this. It's funny because Edmonton always uses that as an excuse, and they're like, Edmonton always goes, yeah, well, we have Jasper, but Jasper's like 5 hours away from Edmonton, whereas
true.
Banff is literally 40 minutes away from Calgary.
40 minutes is like a suburb. So
yeah.
Thank you. Here, and I've only been to Calgary in the winter, so I don't know. Maybe I should come there in the summer. But so I haven't really explored it. You know, I'm just like staying inside. I will say this: when I was there, I thought I had diverticulitis, which is like a thing in your intestines. If you can't eat seeds or nuts and it gets stuck in their infection. This is an old man podcast, more shit. But this is something positive thing for Calgary. And I was told by another comic that was with us, Tommy Campbell, who's Canadian. He goes, "Hey, you should go to a clinic." I said, "All right." So I go to a clinic somewhere in Calgary. I don't know. I walk in and they were like, "Oh, you're from America." I go, "Yeah." They're like, "You're gonna have to pay cash." I go, "Okay, how much is it?" And then they told me, and it was like 25 Canadian dollars. I was like, "Is he a doctor?" I was like, "Okay, that's like my copay in the United States." So I was like, "All right, I'll do that." And then they said, "And if you have to buy any medication, it's out of pocket too." I'm like, "Great." And I think I got out of there for like, it was like 45 Canadian dollars. So, you know, with conversion to US, it was like free. So it was just like, I was like, okay, so love your healthcare system.
Nice.
You know,
nice.
like,
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll definitely take
It's the only
that.
time I've ever used it.
Also, I will say this too: the best piece of artwork Forrest has ever seen was in Calgary. So
at the Ship and Anchor.
at the Ship and Anchor.
Oh my God, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the fucking captain.
So,
I'm not gonna lie. I have tried so hard to get that fucking painting for you, because at one point they were interviewing me for a job, and I was like, "Hey, if I work here, can I get the captain?" And they were like, "Absolutely not. Everybody wants the captain. Nobody can get the captain."
Yeah, that's a good way not to get hired.
Yeah,
It's
I feel like
I
that.
steal from you?
I think I have it. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I appreciate it.
Well, we should probably get into the album. So every episode on Misfits on Vinyl, we review an album. It's usually either one of our favorites or one that is very popular. Mm-hmm. But this week, when we have guests on, we're gonna have the guest pick an album. We had Brittany Lysing on; she picked Alanis Morissette's "Jagged Little Pill," and the album that Forrest picked is Jane's Addiction: Ritual de lo Habitual. So I have a question for you: what drew you to this album?
For this podcast or in general?
Just in general.
Well, again, I'm old, and this was popular when I was in college. so, like when you're in college, you actually, I don't know. Are college radio stations still a thing? Is that like still
there's a couple here in town.
I used to work at one.
There you go.
When I went to college, I went to college in Ithaca College, and WICB was the college radio station, and I used to listen to it all the time because I really liked listening to it. And this album, I think it came out. I don't remember what year it came out. I'm sure you guys did the research, but I think it came out my freshman or sophomore year in college. And so like Been Caught Stealing and Stop, like those were played a lot on the radio. The other albums that were really big was like the Stone Roses debut album, which I really like because it was played on there a lot. And I even got, for a little while during the summer, there was a reggae reggae show on the radio station, and the person that was running it was gone for summer, and me and my friend got to actually host it on the radio. I didn't know how to do anything, so my friend knew how to do all the technical shit, and I just like handed him reggae music and shit. We did that. So,
That's awesome.
WICB.
WICB.
So okay, so all right, I guess we should probably get into the nitty gritty of the album, what it's about, what the history of it. All right, so it was released.
I just saw them.
Okay.
Whatever. Wherever that fits in. I just saw them live like not too long ago. So.
Oh, nice.
Who did? Wait, what?
I saw Jane's Addiction not too long ago.
Oh
live.
shit, really?
Yeah, I saw them at. You want me to tell you now?
Go on.
I literally, it's a festival in Redondo Beach, and it's called Beach Life. I think it's called Beach Life. And it's actually a pretty good festival. Redondo is like stuck in this little armpit below, in between like Long Beach and Los Angeles proper. And they have this music festival each year. I think the lineup this year is okay, but usually the lineup is banging. And Jane's Addiction was the headliner on one of the days. And I was like, well, I'm going to that, like, because I haven't seen them. I think I'd seen them a long time before. So long before it was like Flea was playing bass for them on whatever tour that was. But it was again in that Bayfront Park, that same place. But everybody was there. I don't think the bassist, why can't I remember his name, wasn't there.
Eric Avery.
But yeah, he was not there, if I remember correctly. But Perkins and Navarro and Farrell were there. So
wow.
And they headlined it, and they closed out the whole night, and it was killer, man. I mean, Farrell's voice his voice has never been good, and he's always using whatever effect he's doing, whatever, but it's still fun, you know, like. But man, it was worth it alone just to see the song Stop. Just to see Stop live was so good. I mean, Navarro's underrated to me. I mean, I don't think people think he's a bad guitarist, and no one's ever going to say that, but I feel like he's underrated in the fact that what he's actually doing and has done and stuff. Like, he's killer, you know. And
yeah, it kind of feels to me like around that time, everyone was losing their shit over Slash a lot more than Dave Navarro.
Yeah. And Slash is great, but it's like, yeah.
But it's two different styles completely. It's like comparing fucking Brian Regan to Louis C.K. You know, it's like two completely different styles. They're both great at it, but totally different.
I was gonna say too, I think his stint with the Chili Peppers, he got a lot of hate for his stint with the Chili Peppers just because everyone loves Frusciante. So I think that also kind of affects a little bit when people think back on him.
And he also was a part of the worst Chili Peppers album ever. Yeah. So that also doesn't help. Like One Hot Minute is for sure the worst Chili Peppers album. And that says a lot when they released what's it called? Fucking
this year?
Yeah.
Their new one. I don't know the name of the new one, but it's I think he gets a little bit of hate, and he's a bit tainted because of that little section of his career.
Yeah, but I mean, this album we're going to talk about, and even like Nothing Shocking and stuff, is like, in my opinion, so good. Like, it's like, you're gonna overlook that he did this. You know, it's like, and especially on Ritual, this album, there's so much variation on what they're doing. You know, there's like so much. It was almost like they were like, hey, let's just experiment and try and do as many different types of music we can and stuff. And I believe it was this album, when this album came out, and maybe you guys I don't want to step on research you've done stuff. I remember seeing a quote by Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead, and he was talking about his respect for Jane's Addiction and their music, and this album in particular, I think it was. And like that, this was one of his favorite groups. Fuck, Jerry Garcia.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, that just.
Alice Cooper also said the same thing. Alice Cooper put this as one of his top 8 albums of all time.
Yeah, it's pretty wicked.
which is fucking
Yeah.
crazy for
Yeah, it's
Alice
incredible.
Cooper to be like, yeah, this is one of the best.
Well, I mean, being fully transparent on my end, I heard the name Jane's Addiction before, never really listened to their music, never came across of it, never really, spent time listening to it. So this was a nice little surprise for me. I was surprised by the album. I wasn't really sure of their genre, or like I said, I wasn't familiar, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then it's like obviously the second half of this is like the second half of this album. And I guess we're gonna get into. I don't know how this podcast is supposed to work if I can talk about, but it's like the first half of the album, and then the second half is just like this whole other. I'm trying to look up the Jerry Garcia thing if there's a quote, but I know he said something about how he loves Jane's Addiction, and that I remember reading that at the time, and be like, what the fuck, Jerry Garcia? Like what?
That'd have been right, right before he died. Because he died in the mid '90s, and this came out right at the early. So that'd have been right before he died. He probably said something on those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw them.
Okay, that's
Really?
pretty fucking cool. I'm going to see Dead and Company in June in New York with John Mayer. I'm a big fan of the Dead. So
I'm with Jerry Garcia in Hamilton in Canada.
oh, that's
So-
pretty
Oh
cool.
fuck, that's crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna get into the first part of the album here. So it was released on August 21st, 1990 by Warner Brothers. It's the second studio album, the third after their live self-title, which was their first album, and the last album before their initial breakup in 1991. Getting into the genre for people who haven't heard it before, it's a funk metal / alt metal. It's got a few different genres that kind of go together to make it what it is. And something really cool about this album, it was co-produced by Dave Jordan, who was like an alt and punk and metal producer. And he had previously worked with the Rolling Stones, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Talking Heads, 5440, and Social Distortion.
Oh, that's cool.
And Music Radar stated that his albums went against the prevailing sonic qualities of the day, dominated as it was by hair metal bands, and that he had an important hand in shaping the genre-defining sounds. Which is pretty cool. Like, honestly, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast. Like, a good producer can actually make a huge difference on an album, especially for something that is going into a different genre. So the first half of the album, as Forrest mentioned, the first half of the album is unrelated rock songs, which are like, that's where Stop and Been Caught Stealing are in. And then the last 4 songs of the album are actually in memory of Perry Farrells' deceased girlfriend, Xylo Blue, who had died of a heroin overdose in 87 at the age of 19.
Wow.
So very heavy second half of the album.
Long songs too on the second half of the album.
Yeah. Yeah, the second half of the album has some very long songs.
Is it 3 days? Or
3 days is like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, 3 days is 10 minutes long. One thing about that song, specifically, Guitar World named that Navarro solo in the top 100 guitar solos of all time. It's pretty fucking wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
he
insane.
shreds on that song, yeah.
Yeah, no, and that is basically his song.
Yeah.
Like, that is 100% just Dave Navarro's song, and everyone is there. So
And then there's a lot of the bring down up the thing. There's a lot of that epic sweeping, like just it's really cool. Yeah.
yeah,
great.
it's got quite a bit of range in it. Like it hits a lot of different tones, which is really cool too. For it to sound as cohesive as it does. Okay, so 3 days and Then She Did. They have like a prog rock influence, and then of course has a prominent violin throughout, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Compared to
Then
the
She
rest.
Did is definitely like a prog rock thing. Yeah, because it has that real big like thrust where it like comes in and out. But yeah.
Yeah. It feels like you're getting a wave of sound throughout the whole song.
Yeah.
So something super interesting about, of course, Eric Avery actually refused to play the bass on that song because he resented being told what to do.
Nice.
So recording engineer and guitar tech Ronnie S. Champagne, he filled in, and also he would later confess that Farrell had a tendency to dictate the other members' parts during the recording of the album. So Avery later said he did regret not playing that one song. Then She Did also chronicles Farrell's mother's suicide when he was 4 years old. And what's super interesting about this is Dave Navarro said it was probably one of the reasons that they were brought together. There was times that Dave Navarro said that they had distinct memories of being on stage together, and before they would play that song, Perry would come up to him and be like, hey, let's do this for our moms.
Yeah.
And then they'd have this like super emotional live performance of the song.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned it yet, but Dave Navarro's mom and aunt was murdered in the early 80s when he was a kid. He said it fucked him up for a really long time.
Dave Navarro's mom was murdered?
Yeah, in like 1981 or 82. And of course it'd fuck him up for a long time. He said it fucked him up for a long time. But yeah, she got murdered. And that's where I guess they have that connection. Like, I mean, one guy's mom killed himself and his mom was murdered. It's pretty dark. Like, that's and like the fact that on stage they were saying, "Oh, let's do it for our moms," is, there's obviously a deep connection there.
Yeah, it's dark, but it's also oddly touching too.
It's a little wholesome. It's like,
wholesome. Like, let's have this.
Yeah. That's cool though.
Let's have this really.
I mean, it's not cool, but it's like,
yeah.
I know that. Yeah.
It's not cool that their moms died, but it's cool that they trauma bonded.
Yeah,
that's the part that's cool. Yeah.
They trauma bonded over it. Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so something really interesting about the album is there's actually 2 different album arts available. There's one that's a very simple white background with black text on it. It just says Jane's Addiction, and that was the clean cover. But Jane's Addiction, it's really funny because it's written in like a Western style font. Like, it looks like something that would have been in like a John Wayne movie in the 60s.
Nice.
And then
there's the other one with the Merkin. Oh, it's not a Merkin. It's just like with the bush and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the titties out. Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of boobs and bush, and there's a wiener on that one too. Yeah. And
checking all the boxes.
It also has the First Amendment written on the cover.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah. Nice.
Which is very hard to find, but you can find it there. You're
looking at all the bush and dick on there.
Your eyes are getting a little distracted. You're not looking for words.
And also, this was 1990. You had to use whatever you could to jerk off.
Yeah, it's true.
You got to jerk off to this weird drawn bush.
Yeah, no, I don't know how many people jerked off to the album cover.
I mean, okay, but like,
I'd say there's 1 or 2.
There's one in this room. Okay, let's just be honest here. All right, so all of the tracks were written by all of the band members, and Dave Navarro has very little memory of creating this album because he was super deep into heroin addiction at the time. He actually got sober just before they started touring this album. But when the album came out and they were on a stupid long tour, Perry Farrell recalled that the 13-month tour behind Ritual was half the reason we wound up being unable to stand one another. The other half is that I am an intolerable narcissist who can't get along with anyone.
At least he's honest.
Sure.
Yeah, at least he's honest with himself.
I like the self-awareness that he's like, hey, I am the problem.
Yeah. He had his Taylor Swift moment in like 1990. Yeah, that's good.
It's me. Okay, so about the band. So we're going to get into the about the band here. Formed in 1985 after vocalist Perry Farrell's previous post-punk band Psycom began to dissolve. He met bassist Eric Avery, and they bonded over their appreciation of Joy Division, and they began practicing together. Avery's sister suggested her boyfriend Stephen Perkins for drumming after their first drummer blew off rehearsals. Their first drummer had been in this like super crazy death metal band before joining, and the death metal band, I forgot what they were called. I forgot to write this down, but they're still going today.
No, that's cool.
They just have a completely different lineup basically every year.
That's all death metal bands. I thought we did a death metal. We did like a metal episode, and I don't know about that. And we did it with Rob Dukes, who's Exodus. He was a singer of Exodus, and then it was just going through all the singers of that band and the different people. Like I was just learning just how Metallica started. All these people, it seems like all metal bands, they just like cycle through them.
Cycle through
Slayer. People, Like, he's always in it. Like it's just like all metal bands are just cycling through people constantly.
Which know what?
Oh, by the way, I think it was Avery was not the bassist at Beachlight. I think he did, because they did a tour last year, Jane's Addiction, where it was them and Smashing Pumpkins, and they ended up at like the Hollywood Bowl. And I think Avery was back for that, but I believe it was Chris Chaney was the bassist. So it was Dave Navarro, Stephen Perkins, and Perry Farrell and Chris Chaney. Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry
because
to interrupt you, but
Eric Avery didn't rejoin until like a couple of months ago. Like it was like he had briefly rejoined in 2011. They did like one record together, but he didn't even tour it, and then they were like,
what was he
dissolved
doing?
again.
What was he doing besides? Was he doing other projects or?
He was, from what I found, he was not doing anything else. He was kind of like laying low, and he was working on like just fucking around with music, like on his own. Him and Dave Jordan, the producer, they both kind of left the industry in the mid 90s and then just like selectively worked on projects, which I guess would kind of make sense if you've got some residuals coming in. But I mean, they didn't even really have that many residuals coming in because Perry Farrell made the band sign a deal that he would get 62% of all royalties coming in, and the rest had to divide the final like 38% between the three of them.
Oh, that's lovely. That's nice of him.
Yeah, and it ended up being a huge point of contention.
Oh, no way. No way that would cause an argument. I couldn't believe that would be an issue.
Okay, so
one guy getting 62% more person band? Yeah, weird.
Yeah. I mean, they're dumb enough to sign the thing, though. Like, fuck.
Well, and what it looked like, because we're gonna get into it here, because I have an exact quote about it, but apparently, Dave Jordan showed up to the studio to record, and three of the members were outside, and they were like, "Yeah, fuck it, I quit." And he was like, "Wait, what? You can't quit. You literally just signed a record deal. That's not how this works."
You know, it kind of makes sense why Dave Navarro does Ink Masters now. He's got he's got some income to catch up on nowadays. Cashing that Spike TV check.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Perry Farrell's like crushing it because he had all these side projects that did well too. Porno for Pyros did well. And...
yeah. And he was also in the Peppers for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's doing okay.
Yeah, I say he's done already.
Despite having the least amount of talent of all of them. I mean, he's a good frontman, but he's not like his voice is good or anything. You know, he writes good lyrics, but
yeah, that was
like
actually going to be my criticism for the album is that he's a little like the tone of his voice is, you know, it's good I guess for rock music, but I can't say it's anything like super special. Like the song structures, the songs were great, they were catchy, but the voice itself was a little an earworm in the wrong way, I guess.
If you saw them live now and knowing that now that you like aren't into them, you would be like, what the fuck is this? Like, I love Jane's Addiction, and when I saw them, I guess it was in 2021, so it was like a year and a half ago. I remember just being like, okay, well, we'll get through this with your voice, you know, but because the music was still good.
Yeah, you were there on nostalgia.
There with yeah, I was there with a couple of people that weren't into him at all. Like one of them was my ex-girlfriend. We weren't even dating at the time. She came with one of her friends, and then Jim's, you know, Jack Hackett. He's Jack Hackett from the podcast. So
yeah, he's coming on the pod.
He was there too. Oh yeah, he saw him too, and I think they enjoyed him. But I think they were also like, yeah, his voice isn't that good. I'm like, yeah, he's old. But I remember Bianca, who's my ex, and she's into a lot of genres, but she really likes metal too. But I remember after they played the song Stop, I remember after that song was over, she was just like, yeah, it was worth it just for that song. Like, it was that good live. She was like, because there's so many stops and goes and this and thing and bring down and then push and they like nailed it live. Like, it was so good. And I think just seeing that live, she was like, yeah, that was worth it. Just to see that, I was like, yeah, that song's epic. Like, that's, you know. But his it's like, that's how rock is. I mean, there's only so many Chris Cornells where you're like, yeah, his voice is amazing. You know, the rest of them you're just like, yeah, it's good for that. You know.
Now, I have a question. Do you think that if Kurt Cobain had not died, that we would still have like the general public would still be all over his shit?
I think it adds to the, you know, the mystique of somebody. If somebody dies young and they're an artist, like, you know, it kind of adds to the legend of them. I'm sure like most old rock stars, he probably would say something along the lines that would get him canceled or fucking done in. Yeah, like, I mean, imagine if him and Courtney Love got divorced. How terrible that would be in the press and shit. Oh, God. Yeah, so I feel like he would have a hiccup or two along the way.
Or the him and Courtney Love reality TV show.
Yeah, like the Osbournes.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, there's certain things though too, like the unplugged. I mean, if you just look at, you know, even just the covers they did there, and then even the last song, the where were you, the song that is clearly about Courtney Love, that he was like pissed off because she was like fucking around and stuff. Like he just decided, they didn't even practice that song, just decided to do it. Like there's definitely talent there. It's not like this isn't like, you know, but I will tell you this about Kurt Cobain. There's he still does it. This guy Josh Adam Myers, he's a comedian, but he does a thing called the Goddamn Comedy Jam. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
Yeah.
It's like comedians do a little stuff and then they sing a song with the band. So I got to do it years ago, and I chose Smells Like Teen Spirit. And I like Nirvana a lot, but the reason I chose it is, one, I had a story about it, but also at the time they wanted you to do a story about the song and then do it. Now they just have you do a set and sing it, you know. But and I was low on the bill. Like it was like, I think Jim might have been the middle. I think Jim Jeffries was on the bill. David Koechner was on the bill. I don't remember who else. It might have been like it was like big names like that, like, you know. And so nobody came to see me. So in my head, I was like, I have to pick a song that the crowds, I'm like, this song's killer, you know. But while they were all picking songs that they just liked, you know, because they're famous and people want to see them, you know. So I chose Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I like wore a wig and glasses. I couldn't find like the vest, so I wore like an actual like plaid thing, even though Kurt Cobain didn't wear that. It's just associated with grunge, you know. And I had an inflatable guitar, and I did it. It is not easy to sing that song. Like, even though you're like, his voice isn't great, try and just, when you're by yourself sometime, try and sing Smells Like Teen Spirit sometime. It's not easy. It's not easy to yell sing. Like there's a talent there.
I definitely wasn't saying his voice wasn't good. I think over time it probably would be, because he does that gruff thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were talking about artists seeing them past their heyday. I saw Rod Stewart after he had his vocal surgery, and the whole raspy thing was gone. He just was like an old man singing, which, you know.
Yeah. I saw Elton John like 4 years ago, right before COVID, on his like supposed farewell tour. Now it's done, but he still had the middle fine. But you know, the top ends, you're like, yeah, it's an old man. You know, you're like, oh, this isn't what I paid for. I didn't.
Yeah, I saw Motley Crue on their like 3 farewell tours ago. Farewell tour, and Vince Neil was so fucking out of shape and so out of breath that at one point during Dr. Feelgood, Nikki Sixx just had to pick up the vocals because Vince Neil's just like wheezing his fucking way through the song. He's like, he's the one they call Dr. Feelgood. He's the one that makes kill. And so then Nikki Sixx picks it up and he's like, he's the one they call Dr. Feelgood. He's the one that makes it feel. And I'm like, I can tell that he can't sing, but he's doing a better job than Vince Neil was. Jesus Christ. Okay, so back to Jane's Addiction here. So when they formed, they got really big, headlining clubs around Los Angeles. They were in the mid-'80s Los Angeles scene, but because they were so different from like the glam rock that was happening at the time, there was a huge following that developed around them. They signed with Warner Brothers, but they wanted to release their debut on an independent...
Just getting back to that, by the way, when they started out, I remember like a lot of my friends that were surfers were into them, because I think they surfed a lot. A lot of their videos had surfing on it. And it was funny because they were the first band, and there were other bands that did this surely, like in the 70s and 80s and 60s and stuff, but they were the first of the modern bands that really embraced this like androgyny kind of thing to me, you know, like where and bisexuality kind of thing too, because like you kind of didn't know, and there was no internet then either, so it was kind of like, what's going on? Are they bisexual? Are they gay? Are they this? Why are they kissing that guy? Like they had this real kind of weird alert to it. And so that was very different from the LA scene, like you were talking about, which was like this glam rock, and it was like Guns N' Roses and all this shit. And they were like this, they were clearly talented, but they were very weird, like quote unquote weird. They were like, what is this band all about? And I remember my friends that were surfers were conflicted by them because they really liked the music. And they're like, I don't know what they're about though, man. They're kind of weird. I'm like, yeah, but the music. Right? I'm like, yeah, well, just enjoy the music. Who cares? They're doing their thing, you know?
They definitely were weird. Like, who back then would have been like, my first album that we're releasing as a band needs to be a live album that nobody knows the lyrics to. Like you're literally just like, we're gonna go out and just do a live album.
Yeah, no, and they were wearing a lot of mesh and netted tops.
Yeah,
they're Dave Navarro is like, I guess, known for his net tops. Looks like he's like a fisherman. He's got his fisherman top on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, let's not forget from their first album, Jane Says.
Yeah.
Is still their close with it. They closed with it when I saw them. So they basically gather around Stephen Perkins on some steel drums. Some steel drums. When we're at like Margaritaville, I'll say, and they just get an acoustic guitar out and they just sing a song, and then the whole crowd, there was about 20,000 people there just singing with them. And you're like, this is a hit. This was like their first hit, which was basically like a folk song almost. You know?
I think it's still their biggest song on Spotify. It's the first one that came up on their list. I think it might be their most streamed song on Spotify.
Yeah,
certainly, because women, men of all ilks, whether you're into like metal or even if you're not into metal, you're like, oh yeah, I like that Jane Says song. There's steel drums, and I can have a theory and listen to this song. You're like, Jane Says. It's a great song though. It's as simple as a song can be. When I saw them when Flea was with them, they disappeared, and then they showed up in the middle of a crowd, just on a little postage stamp of a stage in the middle of the crowd with ding 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 ding, and they just played it and then it disappeared again. That's pretty fucking killer. They're an interesting band, man.
Okay, so this is a question for both of you. Do you know how Jane's Addiction got their name?
I did, because I read it on the Wikipedia.
On the Wikipedia.
I know, but it's that between that song Jane Says and Jane's Addiction, I always assumed it was they knew a person named Jane and she died. I just assumed she died. It was a person they knew died. It was of heroin, I'm assuming.
It was actually this person who was Perry Farrell's roommate, whose name was Jane, and Perry Farrell and his girlfriend at the time were like, we should name the band after Jane. And so they were going to call it Jane's Heroin Addiction. And then he figured that might be too on the nose. Yeah. So they called it Jane's Addiction.
Yeah. Too many words, too. Yeah. Good call. Yeah.
Also, not as much marketability.
Yeah, and I feel like if I was Jane, I'd be like a little upset that he outed me like that too. I'd be like, keep it vague at least. Like, why you gotta get into specifics?
So, one thing that I think is super interesting.
There's a great version, by the way. I think they're in a Guitar Center. When they go into Guitar Center and play these bands. There's one of the best versions of Jane Says I've ever seen is them in the Guitar Center doing it. You can look that up on YouTube. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's
really.
A good watch.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the album or about the artist. Okay, so they actually signed for what was at the time the biggest record deal that had ever been biggest ever signing bonus was what it was, and it was between $250,000 and $300,000.
Nice.
And then they signed this deal with Warner Brothers. And then they released their first album on Triple X Records, not with Warner Brothers, which is kind of funny. Okay, so, during the recording sessions, Farrell wanted 62% of everything. That led to a fallout. And then after this album, so we're going forward in time now. After this album, they headlined and co-created the first Lollapalooza in 1991. Which is another reason why I wanted to do this one as an album with you, since you had been to Lollapalooza. Were you at the one in 91 as well?
No.
No, he's at the two after, right?
Oh. I went to the one in 92 and I went to the one in 93. Mm-hmm. I did not go to the one in 91. But I saw Jane's Addiction in that same park, Bayfront Park, that I just was mentioning the concert, with Flea was the bassist. So I don't know what tour that was, but I did not see them in Lollapalooza. I saw Lollapalooza, I guess it was number 2, which is 92, right? 91 was the first one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did not see that one. I only saw the second and the third one.
Well, I think the Flea era would have been the late 90s, I believe.
Mid to late 90s.
Yeah, mid to late 90s.
That was just by themselves in that same park. I went and saw them.
Yeah, that's
like I
pretty
just
cool.
that's the only times I've seen them. I saw them on that tour, and then I saw them a year and a half ago. That's the only 2 times I've seen them.
All right. We're getting into the end of the pod here. We got a few sections left. This one is one of my favorites because it's notable tracks and singles. So Been Caught Stealing. It was number 1 on U.S. alt airwaves. It won the MTV Alt Video of the Year in '91, and Alice Cooper picked it as one of his 8 desert island songs.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which, it's a fucking great song. I remember hearing it in tons of movies as a kid. Like, I think it was in My Name is Earl, was like, I think the first time that I heard it. Like, there was just a montage of Earl stealing shit with that. Very on the nose.
Which it also has getting back to just how different other songs are, even though it's a rock song, it has kind of like an interesting rhythm to it. It's like ding 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 ding. It's almost like this is how you would dance to the song, you know, like hey,
the dogs
kind of got like
caught me off guard.
You know?
The dog's barking?
Yeah, it's a woo, 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 woo. I thought my neighbor's dog doesn't shut the fuck up. I thought my neighbor's dog was going off.
Oh, well, who let the dogs out? Who?
But also into it too, they have that woman speaking Spanish.
Oh yeah,
at the beginning.
That's right. And then the other song, and this one I think is kind of cool. So Stop. We've talked about it a lot, but it was number 1 on the alt airwaves, and I learned about this song in 2005 from a mountain bike video called New World Disorder 6. Because there was a section that had Jeff Golovich, Jared Gatska, and Matt Brooks in it, and they were doing these like big air fucking tricks.
Nice.
And I just remember being so blown away by what they were doing on bikes, but the edit was just so good. So my recommendation for anybody out there is look up New World Disorder 6. Go to about 30 minutes in. It's on YouTube. You can find it. It's one of the best edits you can find in like an action sports video. All right. So, reception of the album. So, commercially, it peaked at number 19 on the Billboard 200. 1 month after its release, it had already sold 500,000 copies in the U.S. And it ended up becoming 2 times platinum there. And furthermore, it was...
That's good. I never knew. That's good.
Super good. Like, especially considering, like, now, like Taylor Swift's last album was like 1 million in the first month, which compared to like she had the internet, she already had all this fame and everything. They did that without a lot of MTV play or like radio play or anything because they didn't really fit the vibe for a while there. Been Caught Stealing.
Yeah, the Been Caught Stealing video was pretty popular. I remember they were wearing the stockings over their faces.
Yeah. Been Caught Stealing was the thing that changed it for them to get like a little bit more of the MTV appeal. But it was also critically acclaimed. It had a 4.5 out of 5 on AllMusic. Enemy gave it 9 out of 10. Q gave it 4 out of 5. Select gave it 5 out of 5. This quote that I thought was really interesting from Select, it says, It all makes you realize how few bands actually bother to try and be any good, to play stuff that's inspirational. Now, the Rolling Stone, on the other hand, gave it 2 out of 5 stars.
Ah, fuck them.
Yeah.
They suck, man.
And then later on, they listed it as one of their 500 greatest albums of all time.
That's something we've been learning is that we've been learning that
Classic,
the Rolling Stones are absolutely garbage. Like the fucking magazine is terrible. Yeah, no.
To be fair, though, that was a reviewer, and then the people that do the top 500 is a group of other people.
Yeah,
but like, who would give that 2 out of 5? Who's gonna listen to that and give it 2 out of 5? Like, honestly, did you just not listen to it? Like, even if you're not into that type of music, you like just like what we've been talking about, just the difference in the 2 sides of it, and the difference and the songs, and like just like that reviewer said, like they're really trying. They were like definitely trying. Like it wasn't like, oh, this song sounds like the last. Like, wow, they did something different here, and the musicianship is excellent. It's like, anyways.
Yeah, no, that's the thing that like we were talking about before, because there was a reviewer from the Rolling Stone that gave CKY's 2005 album. She gave it 0.5 out of 5, and then and it's like, I don't know how you could be like a failing mark on an album that is technically sounding good.
No. Well,
You know what my question is? How do you get a job as a critic of anything? Like, how do you get that at the beginning?
I think you just do it.
Like, I want to know how you get that, because there's no qualifications for it. It's not like you go to school for it.
No.
Or this or that. You just get it. And then someone's like, oh, yeah, it's fucking Roger Ebert. He fucking knows about movies. Like, fuck off. Like, what a gig, you know? If you can get it, great. Good for you.
There's a theater reviewer in town that he's the only theater reviewer in Alberta. And he keeps his job by giving everything 4 out of 5 stars, but giving absolutely no criticism whatsoever. And the only time he's ever written anything about me, he said, and I quote, "Spencer Streichert was dashing." And I was like, that's not a word I would usually use to describe myself, first of all. But second of all, that's what you took out of that fucking play? I was dashing? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a lot of buzzwords, and I think they use quite a bit to be a reviewer.
I don't think he knows who you are based on that review. Dashing? That's not it.
Okay, so we already
else.
talked about the culture at the time. You know, it was post hair metal and pre grunge when this album. Pardon?
Maybe he thinks you're somebody else.
Oh God, yeah, no, he probably does. He probably confused me with Joel David Taylor. He's actually dashing. Maybe that's why he said Joel David Taylor was so funny. Maybe that was it. He got us confused. Okay. So now we're gonna get into the criticism of the album. So my personal criticism, and it's not a big one, but in the last half of the album, it felt like the songs were too long. Specifically, of course, felt too long, and I know it wasn't even the longest song on that half. But then at one point in that song, there's just a Moroccan flute that starts playing, and I'm like, is this a Linka? Like, what is this? Like, what is happening in this album right now?
I touched on my criticism a little bit earlier, just about his voice not being my favorite. Like I said, it's a decent sounding voice for rock and roll, but I can't say it's like anything that blows you away. Do you have any criticisms for us, if you were to pick anything out?
I honestly usually stop right before, of course, honestly. So I usually am just like that. But sometimes I just let it play too and stuff. But I don't think that the songs are too, like, you're talking about 3 days and She Was and stuff. But I like, there's times like when you want a long song, you know? Mm-hmm. And so there's times like when I'm driving and I'm like, yeah, I really want to hear that song. You put it in a mix or like a playlist or something. So I like a lot of those longer songs. But to me, this album is filled with a bunch of songs that like I can listen to the whole album, but it's filled with a bunch of songs that I like put in playlists where I'm like, yeah, that's where that song's going to go, or that's where that one's going to go when I'm, you know, or I need that song right now. Because there's certain songs like I listen to based on like how much time I want to expire to. Like I remember I did a flight from like Seattle to Portland. I don't know if you've ever done that flight, and it's like 32 minutes long or something. And I remember I tweeted out that I only had to listen to Frank Ocean's Pyramids 3.5 times. So, you know, that's how I do it. Which Frank Ocean, I love that guy. See, this is a very diverse music selection for him. But yeah, I might have the same criticism you do, dashing Streichert there, is that yeah, I sometimes stop it right after it, and She Was. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. We're good with that.
Yeah. It just kind of feels like it's a weird song, and like it doesn't really fit. Like, and I get that the second half is completely different than the first half, but it really doesn't feel like it fits, and it's specifically because of the Moroccan flute. I was like, what the fuck is this? This is very strange.
I think it's because now that you told me all about the dead mom stuff, I think they were just kind of like, hey guys, we're going to liven it up here a little bit for you. Sorry about all the dead mom stuff.
Let's bring in some flute.
We're going to give it a little bit of this. The song is a little bit, hey. You know, maybe that's what it is.
All right, so we're at the end of the podcast where we give a rating of the album. We review it out of 10, but we review based on technical element, musical element, lyrics, album art, reception, and does it hold up. Starting with technical element, I mean, Dave Navarro's guitaring, like his guitar playing ability alone, his guitaring. I would put it technically a little higher, and it is mixed very well. Like it does sound very well. So I would probably give it an 8 out of 10 on technical. Personally,
I was feeling 8 as well. I think 8 is a fair rating for that.
Forrest,
it's where the math gets hard.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dave Navarro. I think he's great. I think that Stephen Perkins, we haven't mentioned him a lot. I think he's a very underrated drummer as far as this time of drummer and stuff too. I mean, live and in studio and stuff. And I think he's great on this album. So we're doing this out of 10, you're saying?
Yeah.
Technical.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm going to say 9 out of 10. I think it's great. I think they're great musicians.
All right, so we're at an 8.66 out of 10 right now. Musical element, we kind of touched on it with technical, but I would put it up pretty high because of like musically where it's at. I'd probably say, I'd probably go the same. I'd do 8 out of 10 musically.
Yeah, I think the album, like you said, it's different on both sides, but they bring in a lot of stuff. A lot of different sounds you wouldn't expect from this style of music, and I think they kind of keep you on your toes with that. I'll go on a 9.
9?
I'll go on 9 on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 9, 9.5. I mean, I've seen them live too, and they nail it live too. They're just good musicians, you know. And even Perry Farrell with that voice manages to make it work somehow, you know.
Nice.
So that's not to be trifled with. If you had that voice, you know, make it work.
We're at a 9 out of 10 right now.
Nice.
All right. So, lyrics. You know, I had to read a lot of the lyrics on like the Music Genius because there was a lot that I couldn't understand, which I felt really dumb about. But it was kind of like our criticism last week with Bon Iver, where I was like, even when I couldn't understand some of the lyrics, it didn't matter as much. Like if I couldn't hear it clearly.
Yeah.
The emotion was getting through the song. You know, I could understand what they were doing, and I think reading the lyrics, I thought that they were very well written lyrics. So I would probably go, I'd say 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll go 7 on it.
7.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite lyrics is on Nothing Shocking, but if you need a friend, ask any animal. You know, it's on Summertime Rolls, but I just think I like the lyrics. That's why I think Perry Farrell's charm has always been is like just kind of like there. But I'm gonna go 8. I like 8. I'm gonna go 8.
8. All right, so right now we're at about an 8 out of 10, I believe.
You're doing good math right now.
I'm doing pretty quick math.
I'm impressed. Usually it's just the two of us. Now there's 3.
That's
an extra.
I think we're
averaging
letting his math slide. I think it's like, yeah, sure, whatever you say.
Okay, album art. I think the dirty album art version is super cool and super original.
It's
like
unique,
I really like it. I think it's recognizable now that I know who it is. But I remember seeing that album art in record stores before I was like actively paying attention to Jane's Addiction, right? So I would probably give the album art a 9 out of 10.
I also thought it was pretty unique and it's eye catching, especially the tits and the dicks, all really in the bushes, all really, you know, set the tone. I'll go an 8 on it.
Yeah, I think the album art's awesome. I'm going 9. I didn't even know about the Bill of Rights, what is First Amendment you said or something. And there was also, I remember seeing it. I had the CD. I remember the inserts and stuff are really cool. They had some other cool stuff in there as well. I'm going 9. Say 9.
All right, so we're at an 8.5 out of 10 right now. Reception, I mean, it was very well received. I mean, we kind of, you know, it's 2 times platinum, so we kind of got to go high with it. I'd say 9.
Yeah, I'll go with 9 as well.
9. Forrest?
I say 9.5 because I was living it.
Yeah,
you were there.
That's fair.
That's fair.
You were living. You were a part of the reason that this album got as big as it did.
I heard on the radio. rise on the charts.
All right, so we're at 9.25. No?
What are we at?
8.5. All right,
8.5.
8.5. We're close. Does it hold up? I'd say yeah.
I say absolutely it holds up.
I'd say it holds up. All right.
8.25 out of 10?
Definitely. I mean, like I said, I say 9. I saw it with some youngins, and they liked it.
All right, just for you coming on the podcast, we'll give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, we're giving it a 9 out of 10.
Fuck all that shit we just said.
Yeah.
Forrest review stands. It's a 9 out of 10.
It's a 9 out of 10. All right, Forrest, where can we find you online, and where are you at next?
Well, I'm at forestshaw.net. That's with 2 R's, forestshaw.net, and I have a schedule on there. I don't know when this comes out. When does this come out?
This is going to be out on Tuesday.
This Tuesday?
Yep.
You bet.
Well, I'll be in Las Vegas. I'm here now. I'll be at the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas until Sunday. So come on out if you're in Las Vegas. And then after that, I'm a bunch of places. If you go to forestshaw.net, my schedule's on there. And listen to the ID Cat podcast. I don't know about that podcast with Jim Jeffries. And also the Mermen podcast, which I am on with Dave Williamson, another funny comedian. And I think that's enough stuff to promote right now.
Yeah, specifically, people should go and listen to the rodeo episode of ID Cat podcast. I don't know why, but I just think that's a good idea for people to go to listen to that one.
Very dashing man on that episode.
There's a very dashing man. It's been publicated that I am a dashing
There you
man.
go.
One thing I guess I forgot to fucking talk about this off the top. It's official now. Next weekend in Lethbridge. Come on out, because on Friday night we're filming something for the CVC. So That's my only date. That's the only date I got to plug. But thank you so much for coming on, Forrest.
Yes, thank you, Forrest.
Yeah, super appreciate it. And thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks for
Have a great day. Anal contusions.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Misfits on Vinyl, hosted by Spencer Streichert and me, Aaron Walsh, and of course produced by Sam the Tech Man, Sam Lindsay. If you like us, please rate us, subscribe to us, share us. Our socials are Misfits on Vinyl Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to send us an email with any suggestions or criticisms, we love that shit, so send it away. It's misfitsonvinyl@gmail.com. We love you guys. Thank you.